The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
World traveler, philanthropist, and all-around philosopher.
I've even been to Wilkes-Barre.
Have you? Wow. I've been in Wilkes-Barre.
Have you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite an exciting town, isn't it?
Isn't that where the steam town went?
I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it did.
Anyway.
That was a shame.
It was.
That was a great place.
It was. It was a great place. Every day I get up and do the news. I look at the news for energy and climate change online. And I do a bunch of, I actually go through all of the news in a couple of sites, CNN, BBC, Clean Tech.
You pick some good ones.
But I also do searches, a series of at least 3 searches, usually many more than that, and I look usually at probably 350 articles, 400 articles a day, just looking at the headlines. And out of those I pick about 15 usually, a little bit less. I think I've been averaging about 13, but I've been averaging 14 lately. But I put these up on a blog, geoharvey.com. You can look at it, and we are going to be starting this show on the 21st of December because
it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks. The studio was closed last week, so we've got 2 weeks full of news for you, and
well,
some
we
of
got
it.
half of 2 weeks.
Okay, we've got the top half of 2 weeks of news. Yeah. And we will share that with you and try to keep track of what the date is of the article that we're talking about and where it came from.
Well, I'll put me up here.
Do that.
I generally mention that some of these are really worth looking at.
Yeah.
And if I think so, I'll try to remind you.
Yeah.
There's a couple here this week really are excellent.
A couple of them are really amazing. And there was one today that we're going to be talking about next week, which is absolutely mind-boggling. The government of Louisiana is considering having everybody move away from the coast permanently.
I think they should. I think it's virtually mandatory.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, we're talking about people here who are accustomed to denying climate change is even happening. And
well, you know, once their living room floor gets wet, I think they might change that.
I'm laughing. I shouldn't be. It's not funny. All right, we should start. We're starting on the 21st of December. If you go to geoharvey.com, you can click back to the previous month on the calendar, click on the 21st of December, and you will find this, which is from CNN.
This is a pretty good one.
Yep.
I'll give you the headline. 2017 is a record breaker, and not in a good way.
Yeah. As this year comes to a close, 2017 is on track to set the all-time record for the most billion-dollar weather and climate disasters of any single year in U.S. history. There are 15 in the first 9 months, equal to all of 2011, which set the previous record. Remarkably, the 5 costliest billion-dollar disaster years have all been in the last 15 years. And that is adjusted for inflation.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
This website has a good video right in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's pictures of 3 devastating hurricanes. It's only a 2-minute video, and it's interesting. Good pictures. This is not including the wildfires that have happened since September.
Well, we had wildfires in California, and we had multiples, but we also had wildfires earlier in the year in Oklahoma.
Well, they'll be mentioned in the summary.
Yes.
The CNN summary.
Yeah.
But after they cut it off in October.
Yeah.
And the end of the year has been kind of bad.
The end of the year has been awful. I mean, we had the Thomas Fire. In Southern California, we had I forget the name of the fire, but it hit the vineyards in Northern California. And
we showed that one.
Yeah, and
that was where they pretty much put the fires out with their irrigation system.
Yes, and we've had droughts in Montana and the Dakotas, which, as I understand it, killed off about half our wheat crop nationwide. And we've had the weather has been awful.
Yes, it
Absolutely
has been.
awful.
I got a takeaway from this which covers that.
Yeah.
What is causing these weather issues and rising seas may be debatable. Whether they are reversible within the next 50 years is also debatable.
Yes.
What isn't debatable is that there are more and more severe natural disasters yearly.
Yes.
That's a measurable
Well,
thing.
also,
That's happening,
scientists have figured out how much worse some of these things are than what they would have been without climate change. And Hurricane Harvey was a very good example. They know how much warmer the Gulf was, so they know how much easier it was for the water to evaporate. They know how much warmer the air was, so they know how much more water the air could hold.
Absolutely. And
So
all these things are tied together.
They're all tied together. Okay, that was from CNN, and I guess we should continue
Yeah,
going.
we're moving a little closer
We have
to
a
home.
picture here of Killington Park.
By Jove, we do, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And here's Tom manipulating the. There we go.
That's a nice view from that's from the top of Killington, isn't it?
I guess.
I think it is.
Yeah.
There is a barbed wire in there, it looks like. Crazy. Well, anyhow, Killington is harvesting the power of the sun power of cows
Yes.
and the sun
Yes.
in renewable energy efforts. This is a natural for the ski resorts,
Yeah,
really.
that thing that looks like barbed wire isn't. It's snow on top of a plank of wood.
It is that, isn't it? Yes,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay. Let me read this. This is from December 22nd, and it's from. I'm sorry. It's still from December 21st. It's from My Fox, Boston. Cows are now powering one of New England's most popular ski resorts. The Green Mountains of Vermont, dressed in winter white, are home to the Killington Resort, visited by hundreds of thousands of skiers each season. Now Killington is making renewable energy a priority, and it all starts not at a mountain, but on a farm.
Well, this is cow power.
Cow power.
You have cow power.
I have
don't
cow
you, at your
power.
house?
That's right.
And basically, local dairy farmers have worked out a deal with Green Mountain Power
Yep.
to generate electricity and sell it back to Green Mountain Power,
Yeah.
which they then in turn sell to people like yourself who
Yeah.
pay a little bit of a premium
Yeah.
to get
It's
renewable
my
cow
one
power.
luxury in life.
Well, it's a good thing. It's good for the
Yeah.
cows. It's good for you.
Yeah. It's good for the cows. I hadn't thought of that.
And this is a kind of a natural for the
This
skier.
is part of the Cow Appreciation Society's good works.
Well, this kind of thing, and the other ski areas are getting on board with it. It
Yes.
makes sense for the ski
Well, the
areas.
ski areas,
They use a lot of power.
They do.
And they're in a good location to put up wind and solar.
And solar, yeah.
So they're
okay.
getting on board.
Now we go to Friday, December 22nd, and we have an article from the Recorder.
Yeah, the Greenfield Recorder, local.
Yeah.
State hears competing offshore wind proposals. This is interesting, and we'll touch base on it more than once
Yes,
in this show.
right. And as a matter of fact, there's a specific reason why the Recorder reported this story in the way that it did. Deepwater Wind, the developer of the nation's first offshore wind farm, proposed to the state of Massachusetts a multi-phase wind project in conjunction with the owner of Northfield Mountain Pumped Storage Project and National Grid. The state had called for companies to supply at least 400 megawatts of offshore wind power. Well, the call also included a call for storage. But what they want to do is they want to take pre-existing storage. Northfield Mountain Pumped Storage has been around for over 40 years, but they want to package it together economically with the wind power off the coast.
There's a backstory here.
Yes.
Because whether it was it certainly was deliberately put there in time for Yankee.
That's right.
And it has been used to store Yankee's nighttime production
Right.
for 40 years.
Yes.
Okay? That's not there anymore.
Yes, that's
And
right.
the owners of Northfield, and I've seen this, they've been advertising for customers because they've had capacity.
Yeah.
Now these guys have come in and say, see, you got capacity, we got a proposal where we have surplus.
Absolutely.
Bingo, let's make a deal.
Right.
And
Right.
it's a good idea.
It's a good
Now
idea.
they're in competition with other people. They may not get this, but this is a good proposal.
It's a good proposal, and there's a lot of competition, but there's also a lot of sites to develop offshore wind power.
We'll touch base with that too.
Yes,
there is,
indeed.
and it's happening. It's starting to happen.
Should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, our next item is from Investing News Network.
The first U.S. nuclear units in 30 years get the green light.
Southern Company subsidiary Georgia Power received permission to complete the first new nuclear units in the U.S. in 30 years. A press release said Georgia Public Service Commission has given the company unanimous approval to finish work on Vogtle 3 and 4, which are near Waynesboro, Georgia.
We've talked about
talked about this a bunch of times, and honestly, do you think it's going to be finished?
Well, I'll give you at least even money it won't.
I don't think it's going to be finished.
I don't think so either.
I mean, this was...
We've talked about this on the show.
Yeah, we have. But we'll have to see. You know, if it's finished, it's finished. On the other hand, if it's not finished, it's finished.
Trouble.
But in a different way.
Nothing but trouble with this. It's way behind schedules, way over cost.
Yeah. The price of solar power and the price of wind power have both been declining exponentially. Mm-hmm. The price of nuclear power, by contrast, has been going up.
Yep.
The two of them crossed a long time ago. And so wind power is now the cheapest source of electricity you can get in the United States on the whole. And I'm not making that up.
It is.
If you go to...
Industrial wind right now is the cheapest form of power.
Right. If you go to Lazard Associates and you look at their graphs for the levelized cost of electricity, and you can do a Google search on LCOE, Lazard, L-A-Z-A-R-D, and the reason I refer to them is because of two things. First of all, they are cited more than any other source I know of. Okay. But the second thing is,
they do their homework.
Everybody's got an axe to grind. Their axe to grind is that they are advising financial investors. And so they've got to be right or they lose customers.
That makes sense.
So there it is. And what they're saying is that wind power is really, really low cost.
Yeah.
Wind power combined with storage is about as cheap natural gas, which is much, much cheaper than nuclear. So...
Well, let's move along.
Okay, we're up to Saturday, December 23rd, and we've got a picture of that. Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
That is the Thomas Fire, and the area of that thing is huge. If you look at the lower right-hand corner of that screen, you'll see a green area that has lines crossing it. Those are farms.
I was going to say look like houses, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those are farms. And those mountains that have been completely burned away, well, let me put it this way. The last time I looked, this fire was 92% contained. It had burned 281,000 acres, which is a little bit bigger than half the size of Windham County.
That was just what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yep, it's half the size of Windham County, and it's gone as far as the ocean.
Yeah, it stops when it gets to the ocean.
It can't burn the ocean.
Unlike the old days when, you know, Saginaw Bay would catch fire or the Ohio River would catch fire up by Pittsburgh, the ocean in the Pacific doesn't really burn all that easily.
We've had a river in Cleveland that burned.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll touch base on this again below because there's more on this
All right,
story.
But this is from BBC. What is the title?
California's Thomas Fire becomes the largest in state's history.
California's Thomas Fire, now the largest in the state's history, has burned more than 1,000 square kilometers, an area greater than New York City, Brussels, and Paris combined. Most of California's largest wildfires have been recorded in this century. Scientists say the warming climate and spread of buildings into wilderness areas have been factors. So this is a disturbing trend. We've had a bunch of fires in California.
Well, we've talked about a couple of them.
Yeah.
And one after another.
One after another.
The one in October burned that winery. We talked about that on the show.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that was from the BBC. Now we've got an item from Clean Technica.
Yeah, this is an interesting one.
Yeah, sad.
Governor of Puerto Rico promises revenge for Republican betrayal.
You know, I was telling you, Tom, before the show, the night before last, I rewatched the movie The Big Short, which is about the housing crisis, and there was a bubble there, and I think people should understand about bubbles. Well, bubbles are not necessarily financial. And what I see going on in Washington, D.C. right now is a political bubble where the conservatives are going to discover that they've been had.
I think you're right there. I mean, these guys are posing as conservatives.
They're posing as conservatives. Richard Nixon would not have put up with that crew that we've got down there, and honestly, I don't think Ronald Reagan would have either. Although I think that he was more closely tied to it than Nixon was. Nixon, for crying out loud, started the EPA.
Yeah.
Now here, what we've got is the United States government basically insulting Puerto Rico by taxing them. I should read this. More than 3 months after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico and destroyed much of the rickety utility grid, a third of the island is still without electricity. A new tax plan passed by Congress, this is the big, triumphant Trump tax proposal, adds insult to that injury by making Puerto Rican companies pay a 12.5% tax on intellectual property as foreign corporations. This is part of the United States.
This is crazy.
It is insane.
Years.
We've got an island that's part of the United States, which you could...
And everybody's a citizen.
Everybody's a citizen, and you could, except for one thing,
yeah.
They can decide that they want not to be part of the United States anymore.
Can they decide that?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong about that, but, they are closer to Cuba than they are to Florida.
Well, there's some takeaways here that aren't good.
No.
Federal law requires that the Army Corps of Engineers, who's been selected to rebuild this power grid, to simply replace what was there before the storm.
Well, that's a mistake. No, somebody making the law said...
the law's a mistake.
The law's a mistake.
Yeah. And I think they'll get around that, because what was there before the storm was primitive.
Not only that, it was broken. They can't replace it with things that are broken.
Good point there. This guy Rosselló.
Yes.
Rosselló, I guess it is. He's an interesting guy.
He is.
He's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
I got a quick rundown on him because I didn't know much about him. He's the 12th and current governor of Puerto Rico, son of a former governor.
Yes.
Okay. President of the New Progressive Party, not a Republican or a Democrat.
Yes.
Okay. Which advocates for Puerto Rico to become a state of the U.S.
Which they could do.
Which they could do.
I wonder if he's still advocating for that.
After this event, maybe not. Anyhow, he is a graduate of MIT.
Yep.
With a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering and economics. He's got a PhD from the University of Michigan, also in biomedical engineering. He's also a college professor and researcher. He's no dummy.
No, he's not a dummy.
So it remains to be seen.
He's
serious. He is mad.
It's something that boggles the mind that a group of people claiming to be conservative would be that incredibly careless about American sovereignty. That incredibly careless about driving people into a position where they no longer want to be part of this country.
Well, I think there's a bunch of people don't want them to be part of it.
Yeah.
You got to realize this. They're a little bit brown.
Yeah, and they speak a different language.
Speak funny.
I've told you, I've said it before, I've worked with a lot of people. The best, and I worked with a crew of Puerto Ricans in a chemical plant.
Yeah.
And they were the best crew I've ever worked with. They were amazing. They were so good. Okay. Should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
We're moving to a thing, and we're back to the Thomas Fire, and this is from the Ventura County Star.
Yeah, let's get this image up.
And I think
Oh boy.
Yeah, look at that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does it say on the picture there? Thomas Fire, just not another billion-dollar weather event in 2017. Just another
one. This is just another, Hurricane Harvey was far worse than this. Hurricane Harvey probably cost $160 billion. And when the cost of weather events in the United States is tallied for the year, it's going to, my bet is it'll be double the previous record.
I wouldn't bet against that. It certainly looks like it. Well, let's talk about this a little bit more.
Yep.
The the headline is "Year of Reckoning for Climate Change." It's not just about fires.
Yeah, not just about
everything.
fires. The Thomas Fire has demonstrated to Southern Californians how climate change can be consequent for us. One event is not typically attributable to climate change, but it is just the latest in a series of billion-dollar weather events and climate disasters that made 2017 the worst year on record. There's a point here where you can look at something and you can say, this is anecdotal evidence. And when it comes to evidence of climate change, the Thomas Fire is anecdotal evidence. Hurricane Harvey is anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, but the chain of events is a little bit beyond anecdotal.
When the thing is, when you start putting a lot of these things that put together, you start getting into an area of mathematics called statistics.
Yeah.
You know, and if
we used to call it statistics.
Statistics, that's what it is. When I was in school, I loved the study of statistics and probability.
Okay.
That was fun. That was just fun for me. Anyway, and you know, I should tell you, there's a set of laws called Harvey's laws, and they're about statistics and probability. I made them up.
Did you really?
Yeah, two of them are like Murphy's laws. One of them says, says if you have a huge number of people believing the same thing for a long period of time, it's safe to believe it.
Okay.
All right? That's not a law, it's just a, you know. The next one is if you have a huge number of people who all believe the same new idea, any connection between that idea and reality is purely coincidental. Harvey's third law says the probability of something extremely unlikely happening is extremely high. And that's the only one you can actually prove. It's true.
It's true, huh?
Something unlikely is going to happen. You know it. It always happens. You don't know what it is, but you know something weird's going to happen because that's the way the world is made. Okay.
Well, what the climate seems to have had to do with this is there's been years of drought in California.
Yeah.
And then one rainy winter.
Yeah.
Okay, and bingo, you got these fires.
Yeah. And you know, but there's stuff in Montana, there's stuff in South Dakota, there's stuff in Oklahoma, there's stuff in
the same event, the same dry weather is happening all over the West.
Right, and we've got weather in the Gulf, and we've got weather on the East Coast, and right now we've got,
we've got one hell of a storm.
What is that, what are they calling that storm?
They got a funny name for it, I never heard of it.
It's a bomb.
Yeah, they use the word bomb.
I don't know, but what we're starting to see is
a very serious storm.
A winter equivalent of a hurricane. There's one in the United States now, and there's one in Europe now. They're both going on. And then last year we had actually it was last January, it was a year ago, it was in 2017, we had a winter hurricane.
Yeah.
So, you know, the weather is...
Strange things are happening.
Yeah, strange things are happening. But if you look at them as an overall thing in statistics, it becomes clear. This is related to a set of changes that you can track on a graph.
Yeah, we've done that. Or at least we've brought up...
Yeah. Well, they've talked about a hiatus in climate change, because 1998 just broke all records by a wide margin, and it took a little while for the other to catch up, and so people were talking about a hiatus. But 1998 record was broken in 2005, and they were talking about a hiatus even after that because it wasn't broken by much. That record was broken in 2010, and they were still talking about a hiatus. That record was broken in 2014, and they were still talking about a hiatus. That record was broken in 2015, and they were still talking about a hiatus. That record was broken in 2016, and they were still talking about a hiatus. Why? I'm going to give you another observation.
Okay.
It's because objectivity is to objectivism, which is what Ayn Rand taught, as truth is to pravda.
Which, by the way, means truth.
Which means truth in Russian. So we've got the equivalent of pravda in the United States. It's called objectivism. It's the worship of mammon. Okay, now we're up to...
Well, you know, we haven't heard it yet.
Yeah?
But we'll hear it probably today.
What's that?
This cold weather is proof there is no global warming.
Oh, I've seen that already. Yeah, absolutely. You know. By the way, the models say global warming would produce lower temperatures in the winters in the northeastern part. More extremes, yep. You're correct. In the northeast of the United States. And that's a prediction. Okay, Monday,
this is nice.
December 25th. And yes, I was working on Christmas, and this is a picture.
This was nice.
This is a Christmas picture.
Lake District Hydro Plant generates enough to meet the power needs of more than 300 properties. I look at this picture, and I see Vermont.
Yeah, the Lake District.
We could be doing this all over the state.
The Lake District is absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful place.
Where is it exactly?
It's kind of, it's northish and toward the west.
Of London.
That part of the country. It's north of Wales, Chris.
Oh, north of Wales.
Yeah, it's north of Wales. I mean, you have to go inland to England from Wales to go north, but it's north of Liverpool, south of Glasgow.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's in that.
So it's on the east side.
It's on the west side.
It's on the west side.
That's right.
Glasgow's on the east side.
No, Edinburgh.
That's right.
Edinburgh's on the east side. Okay, this is the Westmoreland Gazette, not Westmoreland. That's
here. That's in Vermont.
Here.
That's Moreland.
A hydro plant in the UK's Lake District finished its first year of operation. The Hazewater Micro Hydro Plant, which is owned by the National Trust, generated more than 1 million kilowatt hours of electricity, enough to meet the power needs of more than 300 properties.
Let's look at that picture again.
Yeah, if you wish.
You know, that's so unobtrusive. You wouldn't know it was there. It looks like a barn.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It looks like it belongs.
And we could be doing this all over
yep.
Vermont.
And this particular plant
That could be any stream in Vermont.
Yep, belongs to the National Trust, which is essentially national park type charity, and it's selling power and giving the money that it makes to the charity.
That's the way they're financing their operation.
Yeah.
The interesting takeaway from this, however, one of the biggest gains is being able to work with the local community who initially objected to the scheme. Okay,
don't you love
they
it?
have kept the community updated and involved in key issues.
Yep.
And they've got the community's approval.
Yep.
I think we could learn a little bit about
We could. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica. Got a title?
I certainly do. The new Arctic is the same as the old Arctic, except without the ice.
The Arctic saw its smallest winter sea ice coverage on record in 2017. Drawing attention to this fact, NOAA's, this is the National Oceanic and Aeronautic Administration, annual report has an interesting subtitle, quote, Arctic shows no sign of returning to reliably frozen region of recent past decades, end quote.
In other words, the ball game's over.
Yeah. In fact, NOAA even has a new name for the area at the top of the world, which it calls the, quote, New Arctic, end quote.
Well, if someone wants to look this one up, it came from Clean Technica, right?
That's right.
There's a nice picture of the Arctic ice last April.
Yeah.
And there isn't any.
Yeah.
I mean, the Arctic, this is the end of winter.
Yeah.
And it's mostly blue water out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you go to geoharvey.com and go to Christmas, December 25th, you can find that article. All right, we're up to Tuesday.
There's a takeaway here I'd
okay.
like to read. This is from the article.
Yeah.
The loss of the old Arctic is as close as humanity has come to irreversibly transforming its planet into something fundamentally different than what has given rise to civilization over the last
how long can people
10,000
deny
years.
that this is happening? You know.
This is a terrifying transition.
Yes.
But it's also a reminder that our path as individuals and as a society is not fixed. If the Arctic can change this quickly, then so must we.
That's right.
But will we?
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, December 25th. We have an item from The Guardian. It has a picture.
Here too.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
This is my cousin Fred.
Let's see Fred here. He's from the hairy branch of the family.
Yes, he is.
Looks like he's got a telephone.
Does it? It does, doesn't it?
Hello. Is that you?
Hey, Fred. Okay, from The Guardian.
Amazing year. And this is a very, how would you say it, optimistic article.
It is.
About all the things that went right in 2017.
Yeah, all the things that went right in 2017.
It's a long and interesting article. This
It is.
fun.
It's worth looking at. This is the year of Trump, Twitter, terrorism, Yemen, Libya, and environmental degradation. But the big, old, bold headlines only tell part of the story. Away from the news hysteria, it is possible to discern progress, joy, breakthrough, and that rarest commodity of all, optimism.
Well, it's an interesting article. It's long.
Yep.
These are the things that they touch base on.
Yep.
Okay, energy, science, philanthropy, the economy, women, Europe, animals, forests, and technology. So they're touching them all. Interesting. Also, there's they didn't have a picture of them, but they've discovered a new species of gibbon.
Yes.
This is a different.
This is a different one.
Living in southwest China's rainforest. It
Yes.
has been named the Skywalker gibbon. You ever seen gibbons? They got long arms and they swing.
Oh yes,
in the
yeah,
trees.
they do.
They're beautiful.
They're amazing. They look like.
They look like they're skywalking.
Yeah, they look like Chewbacca.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay, we're up to Wednesday, December 27th, and we have an item from moneycontrol.com.
Aha. 4.5 million families to get power in India's central province.
Amazing. State-run Rural Electrification Corporation said a scheme was launched in Madhya Pradesh.
Which means central province.
Yeah. To provide additional electrical connections for about 45 lakh families. 45 lakh is 4.5 million. So it's 4.5 million families that are not now electrified. All states and union territories of India are required to complete household electrification by March 31st, 2019.
Well, we'll touch base on something very much like this again. And we've talked about it
We've dealt with
show.
this a lot.
They've got a scheme to achieve universal household electrification in all parts of the country.
Yes.
Which needs it badly.
Yeah, and China had a scheme like that too. They've actually got to a point where it's been over a year since the last village in China got electricity. There's still people who don't have electricity.
Bringing these people 1 century ahead.
That's
in
right.
A few years.
That's right. We're up to December 28th, which is Thursday, and here's an item from Clean Technica.
Oh, Clean Tech. Oh, this one.
Yeah, this one.
I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Fossil fuel companies will invest $180 billion in new plastics feedstock facilities.
I was wondering, you know, I saw that the natural gas use for generating electricity was in a fairly steep decline, but the natural gas was being used somewhere. And this explains it. With cheap shale gas,
more plastic.
Yeah, right. You just tell that to the whales in the Pacific Ocean. With cheap shale gas, petrochemical companies have invested about $186 billion in 318 new facilities to turn shale gas into feedstocks for plastics since 2010, according to the American Chemistry Council. Half of them are already completed, making great amounts of plastic. The other half can be completed. We'll make twice as much. As a result, production of plastics is set to rise 40% from today's levels over the next 10 years.
Like I said, we need more plastic. Interesting takeaway here. Shale gas is the poster child for an economic system that assigns no cost to the harm done to people and the environment.
Yeah, you're allowed to dump trash in your next door neighbor's backyard and get away with it.
Soon there will be more plastics in the world's oceans than fish.
In terms of what, weight?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, mass.
Yeah,
weight.
mass. Okay, our next item is from Doordarshan.
That was the one I was thinking.
Yep, and we have a picture here, and that picture says it's a picture of a village, but I think you're in the village looking at the
village. Looks like a golf course. I guess that's a rice farm, huh?
Could be, yeah.
All villages in Bihar, and this is a codicil to what we just talked about.
Yeah, it is.
Different province.
Different province.
Okay.
Big. It's not
All
small.
villages in Bihar are electrified.
The Indian state of Bihar has 39,073 villages, and now all of them are electrified. Every household in the state would have free power connection by the end of the next calendar year. Its chief minister, Nitish Kumar, said. The efforts in this regard were part of Kumar's 7 resolutions. I'm not going to try to pronounce that in the language, but 7 resolutions of good governance. So.
Well, he has said that improving the electricity situation in power-starved Bihar was the topmost priority of his government.
Yep.
And it makes a lot of sense.
It does indeed. Okay.
What he said is bringing these people 100 years forward in 10.
Right. So we have to move on.
We're
Our
going back home.
next item is from vtdigger.org, and this is Friday, December 29th.
GMP, for those who don't know it.
Green Mountain Power.
Yeah. To raise rates 5%.
Yeah. The Vermont Public Utility Commission approved a 5% rate raise for Green Mountain Power. The approval ratified an agreement between Green Mountain Power and the Department of Public Service, the state agency that represents public interest in utility rate cases. Global Foundries, GMP's largest customer, unsuccessfully disputed the increase.
Well, this is interesting because what Green Mountain Power is saying is the rate increase was needed to pay for increased transmission costs,
Yep.
for increases in electricity costs from the regional grid,
Yep.
and for increased costs associated with Vermonters' growing reliance on small renewable energy generators.
Yeah.
People are putting up solar,
Yep.
and they're not buying power.
Yep.
And some of them are buying the power and selling it to Green Mountain.
Yeah, but at different hours. They're buying it when it's cheap and selling it when it's dear.
Well, isn't that a dictum of Wall Street?
Yeah, it is, but
high?
it's good for Green Mountain Power too because
Oh,
it
yeah.
decreases the reduces
it's
what.
makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Saturday, December 30th, and we've got an item from the New Delhi
picture here,
Times.
too.
We do. It's not much of a picture,
There we go.
but there it is.
It's a very typical picture, and I
Yeah.
hate transmission.
I know you
by the
do.
way.
I know you do.
National Grid seeks a permit to bring Canadian power to the U.S. Well, this is an ongoing story which we'll touch base on.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it appears in the New Delhi Times. A subsidiary of National Grid, which, by the way, is a UK organization. The Nation is
Yes, it is a British firm.
over there, it's on that side of the pond, is seeking a presidential permit to bring Canadian wind power to the United States at a border crossing between Quebec and Norton, Vermont. The Granite State Power Link would bring 1,200 megawatts of electricity to southern New England through transmission lines to be built alongside existing power lines. Now this is, as I understand it, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, in competition with the thing that we had earlier, which was the offshore wind.
We'll
And
touch base on exactly that because there's about 5 companies all vying for
that's right.
contracts.
That's right. In fact, we've got a nice map of that. It's kind of a graphic.
One of the articles has a nice map
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, we will show that one.
Yeah.
But we've had better maps.
We've had clearer maps, but this
Yeah.
is a nice graphic.
Well, I got the name of the competitors here. Granite State Power Link.
Yep.
That's this one.
Yep.
Vermont Green Line,
Yep.
which is the one going under Lake Champlain,
Which has been killed.
stopped.
Yeah.
Okay. Eversource Northern Pass, which is mostly in New Hampshire.
Yep.
And there's opposition there from environmental groups.
Yes.
Okay. And TDI's New England Clean Power Link,
Right.
which is that the one that's connecting up with Northfield? I don't know if it is or
No,
not.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
But
in any case, there's a bunch of people.
there's a bunch of
competing
people.
for
It's
this.
hard to keep them all straight. We should move on. We
Yeah.
don't have.
We don't have
We're
anything else to
falling
say
a
about
little
this
bit
one.
behind. We're up to Sunday, December 31st, and we've got an item from Clean Technica.
Around 5 billion trips were made by the U.S. transit rail during 2016.
Around
By the way, transit rail is virtually all rail traffic that carries passengers.
that carries passengers.
Trolley cars, heavy trail, which is Amtrak,
Yep.
commuter rail, which don't have around here, but Boston, New York,
Yep.
is getting the commuters.
But
to
it's
work.
with tracks.
All with tracks.
So if you have an electric bus that's on
It's on
tires,
tires.
It's not counted.
Right. Got that one straight.
Yep. Around 5 billion trips were made by transit rail services in the United States during 2016, according to data published by the American Public Transportation Association. The number of transit rail trips in the United States in 2016 was nearly twice the number for 1992. This increase has come despite the decrepit condition of U.S. public rail systems.
And it is. That's an interesting story. I mean, that is a separate story. We don't have anything on it, but...
If you take the Acela, which goes the length of Vermont, you don't get an idea of how bad the rails are.
The rails are pretty good in Vermont.
The rail system, the Acela is a comfortable train, and it doesn't go very fast through Vermont. It goes much faster farther down. But, you know, I mean, in Vermont, there's areas where it's probably not going to go faster than 25 miles an hour because the tracks are not wonderful. Well, they upgraded the tracks a few years ago.
I thought Vermont.
Yeah, they did.
I think they're pretty good all the way down to Springfield.
Well, they're good down from there.
And they're good down from there.
I was on it in New Jersey, and I turned to the conductor and I said, "How fast are we going?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know, pretty fast." "Why do you ask?" And I said, "Because there's an interstate highway over there, and we're passing the cars like they're standing still."
I bet we were going fast.
I'll bet we're going over 100 miles an hour. And he said, "Well, we might be."
I'd say closer to 130.
It could be. I don't know. We were passing those cars like they were standing still. Okay. Monday, January 1st, and we have a picture of Autumn Peltier.
Yeah, we do have. We do have a picture.
Cute little girl who got sassy.
This is good. Teen activist Autumn Peltier, that's her name. Who scolded Trudeau to address UN. Interesting story. This woman's going somewhere.
I think she is. This is kind of fun. There's something about empowered women that I find very refreshing.
And she's 13.
And she's 13.
She's going somewhere.
When 13-year-old Autumn Peltier came face to face with Justin Trudeau, she scolded him. She said, "I am very unhappy with the choices you have made," referring to his support for the pipeline project. Next spring, Autumn Peltier will address the United Nations for the declaration of the International Decade for Action on Water for Sustainable Development. So there you go.
She's indigenous, by the way.
She is.
You can see her there.
Yeah.
They call them First Nations in
First
Canada.
Nation, yeah.
And she is become internationally known advocate for water protection, especially for the indigenous people.
She is.
Who are getting hosed.
Yeah, well.
You want to build a dam? We don't care. So they got a village there. We can move it.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Now we're up to Tuesday, January 2nd, and we've got an item from Clean Technica, which I think is kind of amazing. It's
Shenzhen completes the switch to fully electric bus fleet. Electric taxis are next. This is an interesting story.
It's an interesting story. Shenzhen, just north of Hong Kong, and by the way, it's the 7th largest city in China, has a population of a bit less than 12 million people. Shenzhen also has a lot of buses, 16,359 of them to be precise, and as of this moment, every single one of them is electric.
Wow.
Next, the city intends to make all of its more than 17,000 taxis electric, and that may not be too hard, as 12,518 of them already are. Now, this is the thing that I find troubling about this. An electric bus costs about $750,000, as opposed to a diesel bus, which costs about $300,000 less than that.
Does it really?
Yeah. But these electric buses are so cheap to operate that you have a fairly short payback time.
Okay.
Now, Americans...
And they smell better, too.
Yeah, they do. Americans tend not to want to buy them because they cost too much up front. So they don't buy them. And the result of that is...
What do you call it? We talked about it, the extended cost?
Yeah,
what do you
the external costs.
External
that doesn't even
costs.
count the external costs, and the external costs are big. Last month, there were not quite 300 electric buses in the United States. 300 in the United States, 16,359 of them in Shenzhen, which is a city that most of us probably have never heard of.
a
city, and they've put $12 billion into these buses.
And they'll get it back.
Yeah, and meantime, what's happening in the United States? We're losing money because we're not investing in the infrastructure. Oh, well, maybe we will, because Donald Trump wants to put $1 trillion in infrastructure.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
There's an interesting video on this website.
Yeah.
Thousands of electric buses being delivered from the factory.
Yeah.
On a highway.
Yes.
They're about 5 abreast.
Yes.
And they extend as far as
you can see. Well, I should mention Shenzhen also happens to be I think it's the headquarters, but it has one of the biggest factories of
BYD.
BYD.
The maker of the buses.
Which by the way,
build your dreams.
Yeah, but BYD also built a huge factory in North America, but because the United States is not supporting electric buses, they put their factory in Canada.
We talked about that.
Yes, we did.
Yes,
so Donald Trump maybe should build a wall between the United States and Canada to keep the Americans in the United States and not to go to Canada. Okay, we have to keep going. It is our next item.
We have an email
is
here.
From RTO Insider, and this is the National Grid proposals, and this is the graphic that I was talking about earlier.
This is a little bit more on what we were talking about. New England leads the East in renewables transition. This is a good article to read if you're interested in New England happenings.
Yes.
This is pretty comprehensive. This is a good article.
New England is leading the East in transition to renewable energy. Old fossil fuel plants are being retired, and in some cases are even being given severance pay to retire early. A number of proposals are on the table for renewable power and energy storage coming from within New England or to be imported from other areas. Now, let's put that back. You can see that there are a bunch of different sources in Canada here.
There's more going on than this picture.
More than this picture. I mean, we had one that went from Nova Scotia to Massachusetts underwater. We had another one that went from Maine to Massachusetts that was bringing power down from. But here we see basically 5 different avenues that this power could come in on. Hydropower from Quebec, wind power from Quebec.
Wind power from New York.
Wind power from New York, and the hydropower from Quebec would go to New York, and it would also go to Ottawa. But you know, what they're doing is they're shipping this power around, and it's going to make some profound changes because some of this is going to be installed.
Quebec has a lot of hydropower.
Yes.
They have the supply.
Yes.
And Boston and Connecticut
have the demand.
They have the demand.
That's right.
Right now, all these guys are in competition.
Yep.
Not all of these things are going to happen. Some of them will. Probably most of them will in some
Eventually, I would think most of them will in some form or other.
Because it's just an astro. You got the supply up here, you got the demand down there.
That's right.
You got to make them meet.
That's right.
An interesting picture here. We don't have a picture of it, but it's in this article. It's the Atlantic Continental Shelf Renewable Energy leases.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of leases for wind power, starting at Cape Cod, going all the way down to Virginia.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of them. There's a lot more than I thought.
Yes, there's a bunch. It's basically almost the whole way down there.
They call it the Rhode Island Sound.
Yes.
Okay, and it's to the west of Cape Cod, directly under Narragansett Bay.
Right.
And that's a biggie. That's a big one.
It is indeed, but you've got
several of them together.
States like Maryland and Delaware are getting.
New Jersey's got a big one.
New Jersey.
The whole shelf off New Jersey's going to be covered.
The shelf there is very wide, and so you've got a lot of opportunity to put this up. There's
more opportunity off Cape Cod to the other side that they're not even thinking of developing right now.
Not yet, but you know, there's potential there. So. Okay, we've got.
Have you covered this one, New England Leads? Yeah, you've read that one. Yep.
Yes?
So let's move along.
Okay, we are up to Wednesday. We've only got 2 more pieces, and we've got almost 10 minutes to go. I thought we were farther behind than that. We have an item from the
What
Commons.
I was thinking was a separate article, but it's part of this one. There's storage involved in these, and storage is starting to come on strong.
Storage is coming on strong, and
Makes
it's going to come on stronger. There's going to be a lot of money made in storage worldwide, huge amounts of money in the next 20, 25 years, starting now. Anyway.
There's a graph here
Uh-huh.
of the percent of total production by fuels.
Yes.
Nuclear is staying steady.
Yes.
Oil is down 95%.
Yes.
Coal is down 90%. Gas is up 230%.
Yep.
Hydro is staying the same, and renewables are up 25%. The writing is on the wall.
Yeah. And the gas thing, I think
That's temporary.
that's temporary. The renewables are permanent.
Yep.
Our next item,
We're up. We got 8 minutes left. We got
Yep.
up to January 3rd,
which is
yesterday.
Wednesday. That was yesterday, and we've got an item here from the Commons,
Yeah, this is local again.
which is local.
State regulators plan hearing on Vermont Yankee sale. I
Yep.
thought this was over, but I guess it's not.
No. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read this, and then there's something that has to be updated for people. A lot of people who care about it already know this. A flurry of state regulatory activity takes place this month in two companies' request for approval of the sale of the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant. On Thursday, January 4th, which is today,
Yeah.
as Tom and I are recording the show, the 3-member Vermont Public Utility Commission will host a public hearing on the petition to allow Entergy to sell the dormant plant to North Star for decommissioning. Now, here's the news. They have canceled that because of snow.
Oh,
So they're going to have it in a couple of weeks. And
well, that's good for us because I wanted to say what they're going to talk about, or to notify people
yeah,
as to why it might be important to attend.
yes.
So
And
let me say that.
do
The
it.
hearing takes place, or will take place, in Brattleboro Union High School's multi-purpose room.
That's what is planned for the next one, but they don't have the date yet.
Okay. Attendees are asked to provide. Hearings are designed to help the commission understand a proposed project by hearing what the public thinks of it.
Yes.
Any member of the public can attend the public hearing and offer comments for the commission to consider. Anybody can.
And
That's
including people from out of state if they want
They
to.
don't ask for your ID.
No.
The PUC, Public Utilities Commission, has blocked out the week of January 22nd for evidentiary hearings in Montpelier. Well, this could be changing.
Yes, it could be.
Okay, at the commission's offices.
Yep.
More hearings could take place the following week if necessary. Okay, so they're looking for input.
Yeah.
If you got something to say,
yeah.
stay tuned for further
Right.
developments.
The dates that I've seen suggested for this upcoming thing are before those meetings in Montpelier.
Okay.
So 16th, 17th, something like that. I don't remember, but it was in that.
Well, it should be time for people to see this show.
But they still don't have. They still don't have the actual date.
right.
So
That hasn't been decided yet.
yeah, the time has been decided. It reminds me of a guy I knew many, many, many years ago. He knew that he was born at 5 o'clock exactly to the minute.
Oh, yeah?
He said his mother always told him that the reason he was so lazy was because he got born just as the bell rang to let everybody out of work. He thought he was born on the 1st of July, but he had to admit that it might have been the 1st of September.
Huh?
And he believed that he was born in 1904, but he suspected that he had been told that. That's what it said on his birth certificate. But he suspected that he was actually born in 1903. So he knew he was, okay.
Duh.
No, he said his mother wanted to protect him because he was a little too small to go to kindergarten. And she was the kind of person who could have a birth certificate falsified. Okay. We are up to an item from the Sydney Morning Herald
Australian towns going off the grid.
Yep.
And I read that, and I said Austrian, and I said, "Isn't that nice? There's snow all over the roof. And we're going to see the roofs here."
This is not Austria. Yeah, right. This is not Austria. This is Australia. The Australian microgrid market is forecast to increase to more than $20 billion annually. Now, bear in mind, how many people live in Australia? I think it's like 30 million people. So this is like
they're on board a lot.
They are, with around half of all Australian homes expected to have rooftop solar panels. Half.
Wow.
By 2024, this is just around the corner.
6 years.
This will put the country at the forefront of movements that are transforming electricity generation and transmission worldwide.
Well, there's two movements. There's the solar panel movement. In X amount of years, virtually every house in America and Australia that can use solar panels on their roof is going to have them.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing is microgrids.
Yes, and
we're going to have a microgrid here in Vermont, here in Brattleboro, one of these days.
And as a matter of fact,
there's people talking about it right now.
Yes.
You and I are two of them.
Yeah, and you know this. Did you read that thing about Warner, New Hampshire?
That doesn't ring a bell.
It was in the Green Energy Times. I wrote an article about Warner, New Hampshire for Green Energy Times. I'm going to write another article about Warner, New Hampshire, and put it into Clean Technica. It'll have a slightly different point of view, but.
We'll probably talk about it on the show.
Right, and there's a guy named Roy Morrison who's a fairly well-known author, and I think he lives in Warner, but he's part of this thing that they're trying to put together in Warner, which is a town microgrid for a town that has about 2,500 people. It's got 444 people living in the center of the town. So this is not what you would expect to be a community for a microgrid. And what they have come up with here is the idea that you don't have to be connected. The people in the microgrid don't have to be connected with each other. It can be a virtual microgrid.
Now that's a new concept.
Okay. Now, if you think about this, it gives the people, the ordinary individuals who buy into this, a significant amount of power. The deal is, in order to buy into it, you have to have your own power source and your own source of storage, because you've got to be able to be islanded in whatever aggregation you've got. So if you've got a lot of sunshine on your roof and you could supply 2 houses, and the guy next door to you has none.
But he can put in a battery.
He could put in a battery, you could put in solar, and the two of you could have a microgrid that would be just those 2 houses. A mile down the road, a bunch of people do a similar thing. Over here, another group of people do the same thing. They go as a group to the utility and they say, we want a special rate. We want to have rates that are dependent on time of day, and we want to be able to sell you power when the price of power is high and you need the power. That's what makes the price of power high. That will drive down the utility's peak price.
Yeah.
All right?
It sounds like a win-win situation.
It's a win-win situation, and it doesn't require, for most of the United States, there would be no permissions required to do this. And it would be private investment, people in their own homes.
Well, there's going to be a lot of changes in the way the electricity industry is structured.
Now,
and we're just at the beginning of it.
Yeah, I talked to an engineer who is also part of this group. I believe he's an engineer. He certainly talks like an engineer, and he knows things like an engineer. And he said, yeah, there's some regulatory things that have to be taken care of here, because if you did too much of this, the utilities would be in a position where their rates are dependent on how much they pay for electricity. In a lot of places where there's regulated utilities,
yeah,
they look at what the utilities pay and they say your rate is going to be dependent on that.
That's
well,
part of what they pay for being a monopoly.
That's right. And if the utility rates that they're paying go too low, then they stop making money.
Can't let that happen.
Absolutely. So anyway, we're at the end of our hour.
Yeah, we're finished.
So we should say farewell to all of our watchers, all 3 of them,
Into that nice picture of Austria in the background.
There you go, Austria. See you next time, or you'll see us next time. We won't see you.
And when we see we're together,